Hello, welcome to Heretical Painting. My name is Mark and today we are painting an Assault Marine, a Mark II Assault Marine, one of the brand new models from Games Workshop. Normally I'm painting Iron Warriors at the moment, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to ask some of my mates which Legion I should try and break it up with, and they decided World Eaters amongst themselves, so I was pretty excited to get going because it's quite a light scheme in comparison to the Iron Warriors and Iron Hands with my own army. Now I've got a bit of a confession. I automatically undercoated this guy and this whole squad in Lead Belcher, assuming he was going to be an Iron Warrior. Brain was frazzled, so what I've had to do here is undercoat the chap with some Wraithbone. You won't need to do this if you've got a Wraithbone rattle can. However, if you don't, then 2 coats of Wraithbone will be just fine. Even if you do have a Wraithbone spray, make sure to give it a quick coat of regular Wraithbone just so you can touch up any mistakes going forward. So once that undercoat is dry, we want to grab some Agrax Earthshade and some Lamy in medium on a dry palette, mix it 50-50 and just really douse it all over the Wraithbone sections. This will take a little bit of time to dry, just be patient because the next stage needs a bone dry model to work. So we're going to grab some Wraithbone again and we're going to really heavily dry brush this. So we're not trying to go for a clean approach for all of this model, we're trying to get most of it done quickly. So we're going to really heavily dry brush this. Now if there was any moisture left on the model, it would spread everywhere, so it needs to be absolutely bone dry. Now we're going to grab some white scar and we're going to dry brush that slightly lighter. So we're going to feather this over the model. We're going to feather it over the areas that would pick up the light or need that focus. So in this case the head, the top parts of the legs, the back, etc. Just the areas you think would be lighter. And what can be nice when you're doing all this dry brushing, it can be a bit chalky. That's kind of unfortunately how the dry brushing ends up looking sometimes. I'll tend to go in with a little bit of that top highlight, the white scar, and just pick out some of the sections just to make it look a bit cleaner around the hands and the head and all them kind of spaces. Now there's not a lot of metal on this model, but we're going to get in there with Iron Warriors and pick out the really grimy areas on the Assault Marine's backpack. So that'll be the fans. There's a lot of metal sections on his backpack that you're going to want to paint in at this point, and then we'll do the blue later. So get in there while you can. It'll be much easier to paint this first than doing it after painting the blue. Once that's dry, grab some Nuln Oil and douse it all over your Iron Warrior sections. Be quite liberal. Don't hold back and just pull any Nuln Oil that gets onto your white armour. Once that's done, we're going to get some Iron Hand Steel and just paint over all the elements, basically relayering as much as possible over the Iron Warrior sections, leaving that Nuln Oil in the recesses. And then finally, just a little edge highlight of Stormcast Silver on all of the ridges, especially with the backpack and those sections of the armour that you can see here, the grills almost. Now onto the blue armour. Now I'm sure there's probably a colour specifically for this. I'm not overly versed in all of the blues. It's something I need to work on a little bit on the range, but I thought LA Top Blue kind of matched really nicely with what I could see online. But now it is a layer paint, so you're going to want to do 2 coats of this, maybe even 3. Make sure it's all watered down as much as possible so it's nice and smooth. It's quite a lot more blue than you think, especially on an Assault Marine, so you will have to take your time on this, but once it's all done and you've got 2 coats and you're comfortable with that finish, you want to get Drakenhof Nightshade and just liberally wash all of the blue sections. And then we'll relayer over with a LA Top Blue. You may want to do 2 coats of this again, but we want to leave the Drakenhof Nightshade in the recesses, and this looks really good on the backpack. The pauldrons effectively are, you're almost repainting the whole thing, but leaving that sliver of the shade in the edges. Don't forget the little grenade as well. I thought that was quite funky painting that in blue too. Now we're going to mix LA Top Blue and Blue Horror 50-50 on our wet palette, and we're going to make sure it's nice and smooth, just like we've done with the LA Top Blue. We're going to do an edge highlight around the entire pauldron and edge highlight all of the backpack, as you can see here. And then finally, we'll just take Blue Horror as it is, and we'll paint the corners of the pauldrons here, and then we'll just highlight all of the edges of the backpack. Work your way around, and this kind of covers up a lot of that dry brushing. You're spending the time on the blue, and it takes the eye away from the whiter armour. Additionally, we'll get some Black Templar, and we'll just paint that into all of the undersuit that's poking through the white armour. Next up, there's a whole load of cables and pouches, and the weapon grip will attack here as well. So we'll grab Corvus Black first off, and we'll paint all of our cables and tubes. There's a lot going into the backpack, there's a lot coming in and out of the jet sections, as well as bits and bobs poking out of his armour, especially down by his feet, but each model's different in this kit, so take your time and look as to where they are. We painted the pouch in the Corvus Black too, but we'll run around and wash all of those Corvus Black sections with Nuln Oil. Be fairly liberal, but be very careful. I'm using an old size 0 brush here to do the washing. We'll then go back over everything with Corvus Black, including the tubes, leaving the Nuln Oil in the recesses. And then when that's dry, we'll get Mechanica Standard Grey and do a severe edge highlight on all the edges. But for the tubes and the the tubes on the front that are going down from the backpack, leave those. There is like a riveted tube on the back. You can pick that out with a bit of Mechanica Standard Grey as well. And then finally, we'll just get a little bit of Dawnstone and just touch the edges, especially of that pouch. But that should be enough. You won't need to do this for the tubes. They're fine just being Corvus Black with a Nuln Oil edging. We'll then do a very similar process for the grip of his monstrous axe, which is just so world eatery, it's amazing. And we'll paint that all in Rhinox hide. Make sure this is nice and smooth and watered down. If you need 2 coats, then fire away. Just like with the Corvus Black, we'll wash this with Nuln Oil. And then when our wash is dry, we're going to go back to Rhinox hide, and we're effectively just going to repaint all of these rings, leaving the Nuln Oil in the recesses. I tend to find with things like this, keep your brush parallel to it, and just keep running it down. So run the brush along the circle, and then you can move the model around to then do it in another angle, and you don't have to do the back if you don't want to, or the bit that's hidden. It just needs to be the area you can see. And then with Goreful Brown, we'll just pick out one side of those rings just to make it look like a nice leather wrap. Now there was some controversy here. I was a bit backwards and forwards as to whether their lenses were red and green, and it seems like they're sort of and or either, so I thought, let's do green, because I'm doing so much red with the Iron Warriors. So I've started with Warpstone Glow here. Now you want to make sure your brush is lined up to this lens. Not a lot of models have a mono eye lens. That's why I really love the Mark II Marines. But line your brush up and just sort of pull it in where you can. Again, doing the same with the Bealtan Green here, just using some wash to give a bit more interest. And just darken down the edges. I'll add that in the same way, but don't be too liberal. Almost paint it in. Now we're going to just do a sort of highlight, like a line effectively across the middle of the lens. First with Moot Green, leaving the Warpstone Glow in the edges. We're almost doing like a 75% of it in the centre here. And again, running the brush in the same direction, we're going to maybe do 50% of a line in the middle of this helmet with Gauss Blaster Green, which is the best paint, one of the prettiest paints they make. And then finally we'll continue this line, and we'll do it again in the middle, and we're just going to do a tiny little piece, maybe just the width of the trim in the middle of the lens. And with that, we're pretty much getting near to completion for this guy. Most of him's done, but there is a few brass and steel bits. We've got the trim and a few parts on the weapon that we didn't want to do earlier because we want it to be a little bit brighter. So we're going to grab iron hand steel and get that onto parts of the back of the weapon, as well as the cutting blade itself, or the chainsaw edge, I probably should call it. Again, no oil, all of that iron hand steel. Now we'll grab Ruin Lord Brass, and we're painting all of the trim that's around his helmet, as well as the pauldron edges. Now, of course, at this point we are very nearly finished, so taking your time is important. Of course, mistakes are going to happen. Thankfully, we'll have made some leniencies for, we painted the guy Wraithbone earlier on in case there's anything that gets onto the Wraithbone section, so we're not trying to cover up an undercoat, and the blue is mostly the LA top blue, so it can be covered quite nicely. And once the Ruin Lord Brass is dry, we're going to go in with Seraphim Sepia and wash all of it. These two are a match made in heaven, and I use it all the time. Dries lovely. Now we can use Stormcast Silver, and we can edge highlight all of the Ruin Lord Brass sections, and we can highlight all of the Iron Hand Steel sections all at once. So work your way around the model and get both of those done. Just an edge highlight is perfect here. You don't want to do too much more. Let the wash do all the work for you. And then we've got a few final little pieces. We've got some nodes to paint on the weapon first. So these tiny little power nodes. We're going to keep it nice and simple. Just a spot of white scar here. Paint over those nodes on the front and back of the weapon. When they are dry, grab a small blob of Nihilak oxide, just to make it look like they're powered up and ready to start shredding the loyalists. And there was additionally a little element on the back which I didn't want to repaint in blue. I thought it'd be interesting to get another colour in there, so I've grabbed Warp Block Bronze here. It's just covering one of these like orb sections on the back. Maybe that's where the fuel is held. I don't really know what they are. You guys can guess. We're just going to paint that rim of those orb elements in Warp Block Bronze. I preferred the name Tin Bits, if you guys are old enough to remember that. And then we shall wash that with Known Oil nice and quickly before just doing a quick edge highlight of that Warp Block Bronze with Iron Hand Steel, just on the top section. Now our World Eater may not have completely turned to the the evil powers at this point, but the World Eaters were well on their way, right? So we had to have some blood for the Blood God, a dark omen for this chap's future. So we're going to splash it on in one direction, and we're going to be very sparing. This is something you can really overdo. We're just going to paint just on the bottom and the top of the weapon with a dodgy old brush, just to make it look like something's just been chopped up. And that's it. That's our Assault Marine, or our World Eater Assault Marine, finished. This was a great little project. I'd love to kind of get in and paint all of the legions eventually at some point. If I have the time and if this channel works out, I'd love to give it a go. But this guy was a blast. I do enjoy seeing each legion represented in different ways with the new models. Every new miniature release is kind of a new opportunity to see what those schemes could look like. And Heresy's so loose, you could paint this in a lighter blue, a darker blue, you name it. Additionally, I've added a few transfers. I didn't have a specific Assault Marine transfer for the left shoulder blade, but I did manage to pick up a World Eater one for the right. Anyway, well, I hope you've enjoyed. This was a pleasure to paint. Like and subscribe. And if you didn't like it, well, thanks for stopping by, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.